Hi, welcome back to Racing and Restoration. On today's video, we're going to be working on the 1986 GSX1100 EF. We're going to be doing suspension components and all the little odd jobs. And then in the next video, we'll look at cracking into the engine and getting that done and ready to be put back in the chassis. So let's crack on. So as discussed in the last video, these forks actually aren't that bad. They in quite good condition, 40 years old. I'm going to repaint them anyway because there is a little bit of corrosion coming up underneath. The anti-dive on both forks seems to work okay, so they're not a serviceable part from what I'm aware, but we'll just see how it goes with that. First off, get that draining. Take the top cap off. That one. Ugh. Oh, that stinks. I thought it was alright, but that actually does stink quite a bit. That's the problem with doing forks, is it doesn't matter how careful you try to be, you always make a mess. I don't care how good a mechanic you are, unless you've got a full suspension technician's bench, you're always going to make a mess. So get the damper rod out. Put my dust cap. And then in here, in here we have a little spring clip that is very rusty. So it's not too bad. It's not as bad as it looks. There we go, that's one fork stripped. The chrome looks really good. Right, we'll get everything taken over to the parts washer. Make sure it's proper clean. Damper rod. The bushes actually look really good. That one we can reuse. And that one we can reuse as well. So we're going to remove the anti-dive units for you young'uns. Can't believe I'm saying you young'uns, I'm only 36. So for you young'uns, it's basically like compression damping unit. So what happens is, as the suspension is pushed down here, fluid is forced through this hole into there, into a damper piston inside of here, which is controlled by this knob on the top, 1 to 4, and then it flows out the bottom into there. Quite high tech for its time, really. A lot of people delete them nowadays, but seeing as this looks like it works, I think we're going to keep it. Yeah, I can't take the top off of that, so I'll have to clean it up best I can as it is. Right, so we'll give it a good rub down with some quite coarse grit stuff. Clean it down with brake cleaner. Make sure it's all nice and clean. You don't have to vapor blast this stuff all the time. A lot of people say, oh, it's got to be vapor blasted to be mint, but it really doesn't. You know, we didn't always have vapor blasters, and I've been doing this for a long time now. That if you just cut the paint back well enough and give it a bit of etch primer over the top to create a barrier layer, the paint will come out fine. So we just got to mask up any bits that we don't want painted, and then we'll etch prime it. So we'll get all this masked up, and then we will get painting. Now remember, I'm doing all of this by hand purely for the reason being is that they can go in the vapor blaster, that's all well and good, but not everybody has a vapor blaster at home. And really what this little series is about is it's about showing people what they can do at home and not having to send everything away to be blasted or powder coated and things like that, and hopefully still have a really nice bike at the end of it. Some people want to do that. Some people want to have it concourse, which is fine. But some people just want to have a bike that they can use every day, and this whole project is about having a bike at the end of it that we can use every day. I might even ride to work on it every day. Now, one thing you need to make sure you have when you're doing a job like this is time, because as I stated in the first video, concourse restorations cost a ton of money, and a lot of the reason behind it costing a lot of money is because if you're paying for somebody else's time, that labour is going to cost. So if you're doing it at home, give yourself plenty of time and be patient, and don't rush ahead. If you take your time, you can have something nice at the end of it that you can be proud of. So while I'm doing this really tedious job, what do you think to the sound quality of this video? I noticed in the first video I did that with recording it on a phone, the sound quality through the mic wasn't that good, and I've got these little clip-on mics now. So let me know if you think it's a lot better than it was in the first video. And also today I have got the one and only Spud Missile here doing some camera work. So if you like Spud's camera work, let us know in the comments. I might let him do a little bit more. I might let him loose with a camera at Santa Pod one day. That might be interesting.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because all the stuff that you get up to when I'm not around.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Don't lie.
I'm not.
I think he's lying, peeps. I think he's lying. With the paint on all the fault components now drying, it was time to move on to the brake disc, which I'd removed earlier. Now these were really quite corroded, so I took them over to the vapor blaster to give them a good key for paint. When it came to the paint process, we masked everything up. A light layer of etch prime, and then I went ahead with a gloss black enamel paint with a little bit of heat just to help cure it quicker. Now we've given the paint time to dry. It does take quite a long time for it to fully cure off. They look 10 times better. Repainted the anti-dive units as well. They look quite nice. Tops are really quite, they're not as white as the rear mudguard was, but they're going that way. And on this one I built earlier and assembled, the top of the cap, all we've done is heated it up with a heat gun, which removes the oxidization in the plastic, and then a bit of silicone spray over the top, leave that to sit on there, and after a couple of days the plastic will reabsorb the silicone and it'll look shiny, and I wouldn't say almost new again, but it'll look a damn sight better than it did. So let's get assembling. So before we assemble, we just make sure that everything is nice and clean. These have obviously been through the parts washer. They are really clean. We're just trying to get any dust or anything else that's got on them since off. Put the bushes on there. Now the damper rod needs to go in. And an easy tip is on the inside of the damper rod here, there's like a holding tool which you can put in. Another way of doing it is to actually just put the damper rod in, build it all up with the springs and everything in, like so. So you have a whole cartridge like this. And then when you assemble it, it goes on there like that. When you assemble it into the fork leg, you can get everything pushed right the way down. Retaining bolt goes in the bottom. So we got our fork seal driver in there. Hammer that down. That's nicely in there. Then we get our fork seals. Now with the fork seals, you want to grease them up with a bit of rubber grease or silicone grease, something like that, just to help them slide on properly. Now we can carefully slide these over the top of the tube, like so. Bring her all the way down. It's always a good idea to get it as far down with your fingers before you start hammering away with your seal driver, just to make sure it's going to go in. That's all the way down now. On goes the dust cap. Now we have one lovely fork, so we just have to reassemble it. Dust seals in. It's time to fill it with oil. So we are using Moto 15 weight fork oil. That's what it calls for in the manual. Surprisingly, it only calls for 280 ml, which by today's standards and most modern forks is not a lot. But if that's what the manual says, then that's what the manual says. So we'll get that in there. And then we will work it up and down to bleed it through the system and check for leaks. Oh, that actually works. Wow, the anti-dive unit does actually work. I'm very, very surprised at that. Put springs in. These are not the original springs. I think looking at the measurements, they're off a later GSX1100 EF. They're about 2 inches too short, which is why somebody's then made up this length of spring to sit on the top. But we'll fit it anyway until I can find a replacement set of springs, because they're really hard to come by for an EF. And we'll fully tighten them up once they're bolted in the bottom yoke. But that is one refurbished fork. And now we have one refurbished fork. Suddenly we have 2 refurbished forks. I think the magic fairies came in overnight and done the other one. So the forks are now ready to go back in the bike. They have come out really well. Going back to what I said earlier in the video, if you're going to do a job like this, patience is the key. You need your prep time, your paint time, and your cure time. The reality is these have taken 2.5 days to do, but it's the only way to do it correctly. And if you do it correctly, you'll come out with something that looks as good as these. After ringing around about this shock, it was decided that it can't be saved, just because of the rust on the damper rod. A lot of places were saying if the damper rod was fine, they'd be able to possibly replace the seals and regas it. But with the damper rod being damaged, there's no way of replacing that, so it'll have to go. So what we've done, we bought a lovely YSS unit in red and black, of course, to match the colours of the bike. These are very good quality for the money. I can't fault them. I've supplied and fitted many of these on customer bikes over the years, and they just work really well, and you can't fault them for the money. So let's get the bike on the bench and get it fitted. And that'll be all for this video. Got quite a bit done the last couple of days. All the suspension is fully buttoned up now, ready to go. The bars have been painted. I've got the brake disc painted, so that's all good. I didn't manage to get onto the wheels purely because after the first video, a friend of mine phoned me up and he said he has a nice set of wheels that he's willing to donate to the cause to save a bit of time and money. So thank you very much for that. We are going to the Newark Classic Bike Show next weekend, which is the 11th and 12th of January. He will be bringing the wheels there with him, so we will collect them. We also have 3 bikes on display, so if you are going, make sure you stop by the old school Suzuki stand and say hi. As always, if you like what you see, like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Thank you very much for watching.